All right, here it is right here. Yale University, February 10th, this is 2020, said its Department of Geology and Geophysics will change its name to the Department of Earth and Planetary Sciences to better reflect the breadth of faculty research and teaching and Yale's deep engagement in the most important questions about planet Earth today. Refused to talk to me with all my evidence. I gave them all my stuff, and this is what they're showing now. These are nothing but mud fossils. Yale to rename geology. Yeah, you should. You should rename it Mudfossology. How about that, Yale? Okay, my friends, let's just jump right into it. Another shocker du jour, for sure. This I've shown many times it's between 3 feet and 4 feet wide, a hand. I call it a 36-inch hand. Now, the fingertips I found, and this is a knuckle and the tendon and so forth from one of the fingers, and I have the fingertips, and I've had it CAT scanned and DNA tested, and there's no question what it is. Now, this is the hand, about 70 or 80 feet down. I found the feet. Well, I found a toe. So this is, I'm going to go through this in a minute, one by one, to show you what we got. But that's the bone ball right there. That's the bone of a knuckle right there. That's the knuckle. And this side still has the muscle attached to the bone. You see, the bone has broken off here. And the muscle is still on one side and the bone is on the other, and that's the tendon. I'm going to show you the anatomical. I have all of this stuff. This is one side eroded, extremely eroded, and the other side hardly eroded at all. Like this is a fingertip. That's a fingertip. I had that CAT scanned and everything. I had to put this on here because I broke a piece off here to see the bone. The bone is right there. Anyway, that's the bottom of the fingertip. That's the top. And in the 2D CAT scan, you can see the fingernail bed and all kinds of stuff. This is the toe. I believe this is a big toe. So that's a fingertip, and that's a big toe. And it came from, I'm absolutely certain it was from the same creature. It's right in the same place. And as a matter of fact, we're going to do a little field research today, and I'll show you where these came from. Everybody says, oh, you never go out into the field. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Where do you think this stuff came from? I'm going to show you where it came from. I don't have to go too far. Let's take a look at where these were found and the distances between where the hand and so forth was found and the feet. It's like I said, I think it's 70, 80 feet, something like that. Okay, the first thing you got to do is to go out the back porch and out the deck, out to where the foot was found, or the toe, the giant toe, and that was back beyond that little cedar tree. I don't know how well you can see this stuff. The display that I'm watching, I can hardly see anything, but anyway. Now, we're in the way extreme of the outback, and it was somewhere right around in here, in this area, that I found that toe. Maybe somewhere about over in here, let's say. Well, let's start right from here. As a matter of fact, I think I found it right over in this area. All right, so let's start here. Now, here's what we're looking at. Down the very end of the house, way down the very end down there, is where they put a new office little thing, and they dug a hole there, dug a hole. And all of the stuff came out of there except the toe. Now, let's go down. You know what? Let me paste this off. I got 2.5 feet per step. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 1, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 59, 60. Close enough. Okay, this I am pretty well certain is a fairly eroded big toe from all the other parts I have of this giant. Now, a casual look, it just looks like a piece of rock. But look at what I'm pointing at over here. You see that dot right there? You see the one over here? Look carefully. You see the circle here? You see the circle here? There's a tendon that would have attached right up here, and a tendon that would attach right at the bottom, which I have the anatomical shots up here to show you all about the anatomy that I am claiming is from this toe. Now, not only do I have the toe, I have the palm of the hand, I have fingers, I have knuckles, right? There's a knuckle right there. And I have fingertips. I had those CAT scanned and DNA tested. And there's the palm of the hand right there. And that's about 4 feet wide and about 3 feet down here, something like that. And that's the palm of the hand, and that goes with this toe. And they were found a good distance apart. And I'm going to actually go to the site and show you so that we can make a determination. And I think I know exactly how the body is laid on the ground there, and it's basically right under the ground. This was right on top of the ground. This was just under the skim of the ground. And I'll explain to you how this was from a little bit of construction I had done here, an office we had added, and it was I don't think they dug very deep, but there's no foundation to speak of under there, a little something to just hold everything solid, but there's no a basement, so they can't have dug too deep, and they put a pile of stuff down in the front. And I just one day had to go out and find some rocks, and I started running into virtually everything. I will show you in a second. Okay, mud fossil people have eyes to see, and what are you looking at? Oh, it's just some big rock, just a rock. No, it's not. You have to have the eyes to see what you're looking at. Even right there, you see that little round spot right there? That's a bone. That's where a bone is. Would have come up and bumped against that spot. That's on the palm of your hand. Now, take your left hand, right, lay it back just like that. That is where the thumb goes off. It's broken off right about up here, right below the knuckles. This was a knuckle, and it laid out here flat. And it broke right off here. So where are we on the guy's hand? The knuckle broke off. That's the ball right there. So it broke right here. That break right here on my hand would have been right there. And then the tendon is flat as a pancake. You see it? Because it was laying flat like that when it died. All of this stuff eroded away, and it eroded away in such a manner as to leave the muscle and weaving over here on one side on the bone ball. Don't forget, that's the break of the bone, and on the other side of the bone ball, it's completely eroded away. There is no muscle fabric left. It's like a CAT scan autopsy. This stuff is just fabulous. So don't forget, that's the break right here, and this flat plate is this, which is a tendon. And I have all this stuff anatomically. I can show you everything. And this is the big toe from this big hand. Now, what else do you see here that you can make anything out of? Left hand broken off right about here. That is the tendon that runs right down on yours. Lay it right back and stretch it back flat, and you'll see that tendon running right down there. You see it? This is the pad that runs right around here. That's that pad. You see it? And you see the silver stuff? You see, well, what is that silver stuff doing there? Well, it's over here too. What's that doing there? It looks like it's peeling off. You see that? What do you make of that? It looks like that stuff is peeling off. It's like it's got a skin on it. Well, guess what? That's exactly it. This is what's called grip skin. And you have it on your hands too. It's the tough, tough, tough stuff. And it just, there's nothing in there of blood and so forth. It's just tough. And it's got 50 times more silicon than anywhere else in your body. And a lot of that is, you know, this has a lot, almost pure silicon in these sheets. Same thing with fascia. Fascia is saturated with silicates. And that's a whole other story. But let's just concentrate on this. I keep going off on these little tangents. Now, that's the grip skin. And I'm going to show you, I have another giant here. It's much bigger than this one. Much, much bigger. This little cleft right there, the little cleave, is right in between the pads of your hands. You got one right there too. And this shows where the fingers would have run off and where the fingertips are way out here. But don't forget, that's broken off right about here, laying flat like this. And then there's some of the, you know, the pieces way out here. This is one of them that's stuck way out and just broke off of the hand, where apparently most of them broke off at that point, it looks to me. That's my assessment of this Z situation. Now, don't forget, look at this. It's just so obvious what this is. And I can show you where the tendons invest. You can see where the centers of all the tendons are. We'll be able to look at the blood supply. Now, this is the top of the fingertip. I mean the toe. And there's something right here that grabs right in here. And hold on one second. All right, I am pretty sure this is a big toe. And this right here is where the tendon comes up and it locks right in here. So you can do a little of this and that. And then there's a hook right over on the side, which is this, which locks in here so you can twist your toe back and forth, wiggle it a little bit. So that's the top, and that's where that anchors right there. That's where that little thing anchors right here. All right, so that's the tendon. Now this is the top of the foot, the toes. Now let's look at the bottom. Well, okay, my friends, this is the bottom of what I'm calling the big toe. Now, first of all, we have to look at the contour of it. What's different or what's the same? It's just stand. Oh, it looks just like a, you know, curved like that, like a big toe would be. And this is the body, you know, towards the body. And this is what they call a distal, which is the furthest away, and the other one is the proximal, which is the closest to the body. Now, this side here, well, let's look at look at the contour of it. Don't forget this. Oh, these are where the tendons come down. This is the contour. So the guy would be stepping, going like this. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, he's walking. Boom, boom, boom. Well, there's a pad on the bottom of your foot, which is extremely thick and hard, and that is this pad right there. You see that? That is like a really heavy-duty spot on your toe. Reach underneath your big toe and feel around, and on the outside edge, so this would be the outside edge of the big toe, you got this lump, which is what you mostly impact into that lump. This is just basic biology. All right, and we're going to look at this in a microscope and look at it real carefully. But this is the pad that you land on. All right, now, and that's, they don't show it here, but it's out here. Okay, so this is the outside edge of the toe. And the outside edge also carries the tendon. All right, so there's a tendon attachment over here it holds this toe pulled in or whatever. You see this little strap going over here? And all these going up into here and locking in? Well, let's see if we can find that on the bottom of the toe. We looked at the top. This is the top. Let's go down to the bottom and see if we can find those little spots. This is actually pretty incredible. I can find every little detail here. You see how the straps come in? And there's a strap over here hanging over the top to hold these straps. And then at the end, there's a big pile of anchor. There's the pile of anchor right here. All right, this is where the straps come in. In a correct, if you get it right, here's what this thing here anchors actually. The straps come in and this anchor is right there in that center. All right, you see it? And then this up here is this right here. I mean, it's identical. And all of this like cornified skin, all these little balls and everything everywhere. You see all these little things, there's no difference. Zero difference. Nothing, zero. All right, so now what about this strap going over from here to there? Well, yes. Here's where it was. It was right there to here. Look at it carefully. Oh, in the shadows. Always go into the shadows, my friends. There you will find truth. You see? It's strapped right over the top of the strap. There is no difference. This is a big toe. And all of these little cavities are what you get after you get mud fossils. We'll be able to look at the blood and everything. There's a lot of blood and stuff going on in here as well. This is not densely as much blood as the other mud fossils that I presented for DNA, because this particular one was much more mud fossilized. And as a matter of fact, there's a fingertip that was completely eroded down to where, if you look carefully, you can see that's the outline of the bone. All right, you see that? I don't know if you can or not. I know what to look for, and it is. And this is the distal phalanges. That's the furthest part of the fingertip bone. It's inside here. Vein and artery, vein, artery. Arteries blow out on the side and on the end. Those are both arteries, and the third one, they all blow out. The vein side doesn't blow out, you see it? And here's another one of these hooks, like the hook on this one. They all have that hook. And even the other one I had CAT scan has that hook too. And this is the vein, plugs off. Vein, plugs off. Vein, plugs off. Arteries are wide open, artery, artery. Now, that's why I have this picture here. This shows exactly what happens. On the two tips on the end, there they are right there. That's the vein, doesn't blow out, and there's the artery. The artery comes down, blows out on the sides. There's two on the sides and two on the ends. That's just the nature of the way fingertips and toes are built. Now, I don't know if the toes have two on the side and two on the front, but fingertips, no question, and that is a fingertip. But it's so highly eroded, that would have been about this big. This here is the same, or somewhere, similar to this, but it has eroded completely down to where this is all that's left. If you can see this black, I don't know if you can or not. Hold on one second. Sometimes this makes it show up. You see that black stain there? Probably not. That black stain is what's called a distal phalanges bone black pattern. And again, this is another mud fossil, all from this same creature. It was all just laying right there, right there. So let's go take a look at it in a while, and we'll see what it is. But in the meantime, I'm probably going to show you some more of this, because it's kind of wet outside right at the moment. But these things, like there's a bone. Now, I don't know if this came from this creature or not. This bone was found right in the same area. It's kind of small for this, but maybe not. I say maybe it's about the right size. I don't know. And it actually still has a taste of bone right there. All the rest goes into what I originally called this fascia, facilitated fossilization, because this is all fascia. Everything you see here is coated with fascia, 100%. And fascia turns into feldspar. And it's all from the Great Flood. So there's so much to go over, I guess we're just going to have to start. All right, let me just go over a couple things so you get a good idea of what we are up to here. Now, I showed you the hand. Now we're going to go see where that came from and some details about how I found it. And and this, of course, is the CAT scan of one of those fingertips. And that's the bone. And you see this one here and right over here? Those are the two tendons, you see? 2D CAT scan is fabulous. Jesse Garant and Associates did this. They're in Canada and the United States. Absolutely top of the line, best. I think they're the best there is in the world. And they did 7 CAT scans for me at no charge because they knew what I had here and they wanted to present it to the world. It didn't work out well. This goes back to 2015. Jesse Garant and Fabio are the best people you ever talk to. If you ever need something scanned, they do it all. Now, you see that? That's a tendon. You see that black? I believe that's the vein. You see this one over here? It's another tendon. And this one here, I think, is the artery. All right, I broke this piece off of here so I could get down in to see the bone. And I can tell you what, this I know is a right-handed thumb. And you say, Roger, come on. And I say, yes. This is the only one that has the bone offset. You see this big lump hanging off on the side of your right hand? This is flat over here. It comes right up the side, just like a normal finger. It should be like this. What's that big lump doing? The only one that has a lump is a right-hand thumb. Or the left-hand thumb, but this happens to be, if this isn't superimposed, this is a right-hand thumb. Now, the crazy thing is, the hand that I showed you is a left-hand hand. So I got a right-hand thumb from a left-hand hand, so there must be a right-hand hand out there somewhere. All right, take your time and look at this carefully. Your own thumbnail, or fingernail, whatever, doesn't matter, comes around like this and comes up and curves around in the front. Would you agree that this particular pattern looks like a fingernail? You know, take a look at it, take your time. You see the curve? Here, let me come up close to this. All right. This is the front of your fingertip, just like you cut it with your fingernail clippers. Right there. And it's nicely clipped. It's not ragged and jaggedy and nasty at all. It's perfect. If some of it has eroded away, leaving some of the thickness of the fingernail has like flaked off. But this is still a little piece that's on top that is the thickness of the fingernail, and it's pretty thick. Now, again, this is the front of the fingernail. It wraps all the way around. It's a little eroded back here, but not much. And then it still shows very well here, and there's a leaf in the front of that. But this is it. That is the fingernail. Now, what would be attached to that fingernail? Well, a finger. So, what is this little round thing here? What's that? And what's that dot there and that dot there? Well, this is the bumper pad that's in between two bones so that they can rock against each other. It's like cartilage. This is, I believe, the vein and artery coming in here. Remember I showed you this one here. This is a big fingertip too. It's obviously small enough to carry around, but there's the vein and artery, basically in the same place. All right, and this has the vein and artery on the sides, and that was the distal phalanges, that black bone black there, which I doubt you'd be able to see. But if you could see it, that's what a distal phalanges look like. That's the pattern. And the bone black means that the marrow inside the bone bleeds out and it's black. It's hematite. It turns black. and they call it a bone black. So this is a fingertip. That's a fingertip. And I'm going to tell you right now, this is 36 inches long from here to the very front of the tip. That's 3 feet. This is a monster. Absolute monster. And this was also DNA tested, and it was excellent quality DNA. It was as good as you can get, because I broke this piece off right here. There was no way I could get any blood out of it. I saw no way of getting any blood whatsoever. And so I figured if I smashed the piece off, I could get inside and find some blood. And sure enough, and it just popped right off like a scab. I hit it, and it just fell right off. And I said, wow, that's kind of strange, because it was just about this thick, and the whole piece just fell right off. So, you know, at this time, I really couldn't move this thing. This thing weighs, I don't know how much it weighs, but it weighs a lot. So what came off of there? When I smacked that, this came off. And then when I started looking at it close, I realized this is fingerprints. Those are fingerprints. Those are sweat pores. That's a sweat pore. That's a sweat pore. And these are the fingerprint ridges. You see it right there? Same thing with the little sweat pores. All right, and it's exactly how it came off. When I whacked it, it just popped right off. This is like, well, I got it over here somewhere. It's about this thick. It's just skin. It's just grip skin. And then when I got down in here, then you got blood, and I pulled out blood that just was like raw blood. I mean, once you get past that grip skin, you're down in the totally saturated with blood, absolutely draining saturated with blood in some cases, and blood literally leaking out of it. As a matter of fact, this bone right here had blood leaking out of it. I think it was this bone. It was one of these bones with the bone foramen. And well, I'll just show you to make sure that you realize I am being honest with you. All right, this proves several different things. Bones have what they call bone foramens, and they're little cavities like this. And they have nerves and arteries and veins moving from a bone into tissue or whatever. But you'll see underneath that actually bled from a bone that was just laying around here when it started to dry out. When they're in the wet mud, they're good. So I decided, well, I'll take a look what's underneath there carefully. So I moved the scab. And then what did you find, Roger? Well, this is what I found. And what does this mean? Well, you know that's the scab. You've seen scabs before, I'm certain. This is what's called fibrin. It's a fibrous clotting fiber that floats around in your body, little things, and they will collect where they need to make scabs. And they collect the scab, and then the scab starts to clot into that fiber. And then once that's all done, the scab goes away and the fiber just gets incorporated back into your body. It's almost like interstitium. You see how fine that is? It's like some kind of a fabric. Now, this had blood. So where did blood come from? Right from here and over here. There's black and red blood. Can you show me that? Well, I think I can. All right, so now everything's gone. I ripped it all apart. All we can see is a little bit of the fibrin, and we can see the artery with the red blood, which would have been a little bitty tube. And this one we can see the tube much better, which is the black blood running down to the vein. There's no big mystery here. That's what it is. That case is closed. And that's just from coming out of this bone foramen. They say, well, you can't get blood out of a rock. You can't get a rock without blood. It almost doesn't exist. I'm not kidding you. It's just unbelievable how much they have missed about geology. And as a matter of fact, did you know there is no more geology at Yale? After all my research, they changed the name of geology into planetary sciences. And then they've got a big banner up there showing a mud fossil. Okay, my friends, this is kind of interesting. I just jumped up here to look up my paper on fascia facilitated fossilization, and congratulations, Roger, 5,000th mention. mentioned in a fossil fuel paper uploaded to academia. I know they're paying attention to what I'm doing. There's no question whatsoever. Refusal to engage, 100%, right across the board. Do I want to see my mentions? No, thank you. No. This is fascia facilitated fossilization. This goes back to 2015. And of course, I was like 5 years into this. And I already had all my DNA tests, CAT scans, all that stuff done, 2015. And this was about the mud fossils. Basically, it was about mud fossils. And I talked about the fascia and how it made one giant system, and it was created by fibers and elastins, and it was a fluid-filled highway, and all the 50 times silicon, and I had everything all down. Fascia, tubular, fluid-filled fabric network. And it can instantly reconfigure itself. Now they've just released a paper just a couple days ago. They said, wow, fascia can melt. I showed this. I showed it in the mud fossils. Fascia can melt and then reconfigure itself. And I had all this down way back then. And nobody else was paying any attention to this whatsoever, except a couple they were calling it fuzz. It appears fascia may be much more than simple fuzz, as doctors often refer to it. This guy, Werner Klinger, from the University of Ulm, has done some excellent work on fascia. He was, I guess he still does it at the University of Ulm, and then there was another guy I was working with that was in Germany. But they're sports people, sports injuries people. But anyway, and then water has recently shown memory, and when I say memory, the memory is about what materials are in the water, let's put it that way, where it comes from, that type of thing. I think that's what I meant there. And I also feel quantum numbers, possibly from folded proteins, are the source of the program codes. Pure speculation, forget that. That was just nonsense on my part. Now, but anyway, this was about solving, preservation. All right, and then there's pHs and the wet potential, spontaneous potentials in the ground. They're called telluric currents. There's all kinds of things that affect it, but different areas have different types of fluids in them and different types of tissues, and there's a lot to think about here, a lot. So anyway, this was my paper about it in 2015. And it's virtually identical to what Yale wrote in 2016. This was Yale's paper, 2016. Exceptional preservation soft-bodied creatures. They just made that name up because they found it somewhere at a cura in Australia. What I could show them is less than 15 miles away from Yale. And they refuse to examine it. I'm just telling you the truth. And this is the guy right here, Derek Briggs, that I presented all my stuff to, and he basically, we didn't get along, let's put it that way. And anyway, I don't want to get into that side of things anymore. This is they're saying that the Earth's earliest fossilized complex creatures, how they've preserved, we don't know. Remains controversial, they say. Exceptionally preserved. Yes, exactly. And they say it may have even been a failed evolutionary experiment. Yes, exactly what it was. So now they go ahead and rename geology into Earth, well, let me show you what they did do. And they show I told them all about the Earth being mud fossils and my giants, and I had a DNA test and a CAT scan. Totally refused to engage. Then they got funded to do this by NASA. Because I also approached NASA. I said, NASA, you got mud fossils on Mars. And somehow they ended up with Yale and paying them to do the research that I already did. And of course, Yale got it wrong. And then Yale did this. They named it Yale to rename geology and geophysics. This is in 10/20/20. All right, look. This is gigantic mud fossils. I told them about this. They knew about it. Why did they rename it? I can tell you why. Because those are muscle sarcomeres. This is just nothing but eroded biology. That's not something that collected over the course of little tiny here and another little tiny here, another. No, absolutely not. And I could show this in a million, and they know it now. I know they know that. If they're not, I can't believe the incompetence level of being able to show all these things and having them rejected, then writing a paper that was basically what I told them, and then changing the name to reflect the fact that it no longer applies. Geology is not geology. All right, they're changing the name to better reflect reality. How about that? But why don't they step forward and talk about reality? That's a whole different story. They won't come up and speak about it because it just completely overthrows everything they said about history and about geology, archaeology, anthropology, evolution, religion, virtually everything. And now they're being shown not in a very, very, very bad light for the refusal to engage in reality, which is their specific function. And they are fiduciaries to their students, and they are not acting in the students' best interest. And that is required of a fiduciary. And they are fiduciaries. I don't care how you cut it. All right, watch this. This is what they found. That is not bone anymore. That is, it's turned into mud fossil. Now this is a bone, it's a bone, but it's now a mud fossil. And I've been pointing this out right here as bone. And I think it is, because the whole thing, excuse me, is a bone. And that specific spot is the last bit of white there is. It has not transitioned in that one spot. Now I'm going to show you where that is in this bone in my microscope. But here's the key. They now realize they don't have to find bones. They can. The stone is from mud fossils. They're exact copies. That's what Yale is talking about, exceptionally preserved. And now they have to change all their geology. There's no such thing as geology. It's nothing more than creatures. Now I'm going to turn the light on, which will bleach that right out. Now here's what we're looking at before. All right, that's what they're looking at, and then they're looking at that. Now, you see, this is what they're finding, these little things. It's like a chunk of this bone, the same thing, basically the same. Now, what was I showing you before? That spot right there. That little tiny white spot. Now, this is a bone. Of that, there's no doubt whatsoever, 100% certainty. This is the membrane around that bone. The Greeks used to call it the tunica. And this, I believe the nerves or whatever come up through there. Now, what about this? That whole surrounding should be calcium, right? The bone, well, hold on a second. Let me show you something. All right, check this out. So my contention is that you have a bone head which is completely calcium surrounded by that membrane, and then the calcium comes running down here as the outside of the bone, which would mean that that would basically have to be bone. It's not a tendon, but bone. Now, here's a bone. Look at that. Look at the structure of bones. How intricate that is. Isn't that something? It's just incredible. Now, this is the head of the bone, basically. The green, don't worry about that. That was just from an experiment. But let's say this is the head of the bone, and that's what'll happen. You're going to get a lot of these structures that are like anchors in the bone. That's why you got all these little tiny holes. That's where all your little tendons and so forth lock into your bones. And this, I really don't know what to think about that particular weaving inside the bone. I don't know if you can even see that or not, but you will in the microscope. You see that weaving? Very, very, very interesting. So anyway, that's basically what you got. So I'm going to go with it. That would have to be part of this bone, the casing of the bone, right? Would you agree? It's right on the outside edge. And that's the marrow in the center. And all that has transitioned. You can't tell. Now, if I sanded this all flat down, you might be able to see where the change is, because I've done that with other bones and arteries and so forth, and you can see how it changes as it goes in, because the membrane is totally different than the bone, and the bone is totally different than the marrow. It's just, and if you can get it separated nice in a flat plane, and a little water or a little oil or something like that on it, you see these separations very, very clearly, very clearly. All right, I'm going to really dive deep into this, into mudfossology and all of the different stuff. I got so much to show that I don't want to do it right now. What I want to do is show you this stuff today, just what I have shown you so far, and then I want to go into all of this stuff as deep as you can go into it. And I think I can prove every word I'm saying. And if somebody can say I'm not proving myself, I want them to say it. But I don't want Yale to just tell me to go away and then start, you know, sort of slowly bring this in. I want this to be spoken of. I think that's fair. I presented this to Derek Briggs at Yale over 10 years ago. And I see they're just basically doing the same thing I was talking about. And now they changed the name of geology because it doesn't fit. This isn't geology. This isn't, oh, this is quartz this, and this is, and I had this woman, she said her final exam for her PhD or something in geology was to name every different type of rock what it was. This is sanity. Because there is no one type of rock. Every rock can change into anything. It doesn't matter. You know, you could say this is igneous, this is metamorphic, this is sedimentary, this is crystal, this and that, blah, blah, blah. It's meaningless. Where did it come from? What kind of creature was it? What kind of biology? Where was it found? How big was it? When did it get petrified into this manner? How was it fossilized? What's the chemistry? Why is it always 3 layers worldwide? Red bed. Why is that? Why is that red? Red bed. Why? Maybe because when Venus almost hit Earth, it boiled all the oceans, and it boiled the flesh off the creatures, and it collected in this red bed? Maybe. And then what would settle after that? Well, gray clay, which is all the other sediments and trees and all everything, were a little bit different than the blood. And blood and flesh would have boiled right off, and then everything on top of it. Because even transition metals in the flesh and blood, those are metals. Those are heavy. They just sink. Transition metals in blood is what brought it down. I have a vast assortment of things. We have no toes, which are feet like this. This is here in my shop. This is right here, I'm going to show you, is a human footprint in the gray clay through the red bed. The red bed is right here. This is the red bed of flesh that boiled off the creatures. Blood is more dense and flesh is more dense, and it sinks. That's why if you have blood in your stool and you see it in the toilet, it actually sinks to the bottom because blood is heavier. So you end up with this red, fleshy, gooey, bloody, red bed. And then on top of it came a gray clay. So this would have been a red bed, or here would have been a gray clay. Guess what? This guy came running through at the same time where the gray clay was still on top of the red bed. Everything was wet. He stepped in there. This is the balls of his feet. There's his heel that hit here, and he went just like that, and he kept running. All right, that is a human footprint. And guess what? That's the gray clay. You see the gray right there? That gray is right here. It shouldn't be down there. You see the red up here? Hold. A little bit of moisture always helps just bring it out. But you can see right here, this gray should have been up above the red bed. And it isn't. It got pushed down through the red bed. That means that the gray clay and the red bed, which was supposed to be above, were wet at the same time. And that's the signature of the Triassic era, and I am in the most well-studied Triassic era in the world. And this is exactly where they have been studying. And this is a human footprint through the Triassic era rock. The Triassic era happened like on a weekend. That's about it. And somehow this guy survived and got out from wherever he was hiding, stepped on the wet red bed, red gray clay, and pushed it down through the red bed. It hadn't hardened up yet. It just pushed it right down through. So, and then the black cap, which is here, I'm not going to carry it up, it's heavy as hell, landed right down on top when all the fallout came. All right, and this is what I call the suck-ups. You see these little dimple things? See those little dimple things? That's where he hit, like, because it was still a little wet. There's the balls of his feet. It looks like the guy's eyeballs and his nose. And I always wondered about this thing right here. This always bothered me. I said, how could that do? Why is that raised up? He was running. He hit here first. Bang. And then he went here like that, and he went and pushed his back up as he was going forward. I got to solve all these little mysteries. Otherwise, mystery means you don't know what you're doing. I don't like that. Well, okay, my friends, I came back to home base and did a little investigation. I was wrong on a couple of things. One is that 60 times 2.5 is not like 90. 60 times 2.5 is, well, 120 plus 30 is 150 feet. So I was counting 150 feet from where I found a toe up to where the office was constructed, where the hand was. That's way too long. It couldn't have been. The foot must have been up here somewhere, because it's just way too big. If you measure it out, I go by the same dimensions. Like if you have a 1-inch fingertip and you got a 10-inch finger, well, it's 10 times bigger. The whole body, I would say, it's 1-to-1 as far as I'm concerned. So if this fingertip was 3 feet long, which it is, that guy, I would say, is approximately 35 times bigger than an average person. And if you went even if you went just 5 feet, there'd be 180 feet tall. And that's where I was putting this guy, 180 to 200 feet. And that's fine, but the other one is not going to be that tall. I was wrong about that. So the foot must not have been right in the same spot where the hand, in other words, the foot either got stretched that way or the hand got stretched this way. But they should have been closer together. That's my guess. Because of the sizes of them. This is the size of this fingertip right here. Is only, see the fingernail bed right there? I think it's only 8 or 9 inches long. So, 8 or 9 inches is only 9 times longer than a normal fingertip. And if the guy is even 6 feet, 9/6, that's 54 feet tall. That's where I had this guy, 50 to 80 feet, somewhere in that area. And I think that's more realistic. It's not going to be 150 feet plus. That was a mistake. I retract that mistake. So anyway, I'm going to leave it at this. My stuff is too much for him to take. Now this is not bone anymore. This is stone. The same things that I have, only mine are gigantic human beings, bigger than these creatures. My big guy, he could have half a dozen of his friends over and had this thing for dinner. I'm telling you, the creatures that were here on this earth is just beyond belief. That's why they had to take them out of all the ancient texts. Otherwise they'd say, this is just all crazy. These people are insane. And that's what they said about me. And they still say it, most of them. But I have the evidence to support what I'm saying. They have nothing to counter my evidence. Nothing. And I can show the Triassic period was the Great Flood, red bed, gray clay, black cap, just exactly as Velikovsky said. And it didn't happen 450, 550 million years ago. It was just like that, and it happened about 3,700 years ago, approximately, somewhere in that area. It was not that long ago, because it was recorded by everybody on Earth. They said a fiery comet was born from the feared god Jupiter and almost hit Earth and caused all this cataclysm. And Earth literally wrenched and almost stood still, or it did stand still for a day. And in certain regions, and it twisted the poles too, and in certain regions there was 3 days of darkness and then 3 days of brightness. In other regions, it was 1 day and 1 day of darkness and 1 day of light. That's why nobody could understand. How could we do 3 days here and 1 day there and da-da-da? Well, it depends on where you are on the ball and where you got twisted to and how you're going. So anyway, it's time we wake up to mud fossils. Let it be understood. Let it be studied. Let it be looked at for our ancient history and a possible eternity. I don't know. I'm not going to tell you one way or the other what you have to think, but I'm going to tell you one thing: think.